good evening and welcome back. So, Twitter hides Trump tweet for telling people what will happen if they continue looting. CNN starts wanting First Amendment rights. And the officer who is responsible for killing George Floyd, what started the protests, has been arrested and charged with murder as the law follows through. Yes, we can both play this game. So, first off, Twitter has continued its rampage about now hiding tweets from President Trump, and this is where editorializing comes into play. If you wish to just be a platform, then you platform people. It's quite obvious that they will say what they want to say, and you will pass it on as they say it. That is what a platform does. The reason for that is that you will have too many users, you cannot be held accountable for all of the users, and therefore nobody can sue you because you have those platform protections. The person who posted their comment, their article, whatever it might be, they are responsible for their own content, and you are not, as you are just the platform allowing them to do it. Twitter has instead decided to editorialize. That is, previously they decided to add links and comments about fact-checking, linking to other opinion pieces, which is then editorializing the tweet. So they are no longer a platform, but instead a publisher. And now they're deciding what can and can't go on their platform. In that case, they're not a platform, they are a publisher, which is fine if they want to be a publisher. And this reflects Trump's executive order, which is to say, if you want to be a publisher, you will be held accountable as a publisher. But it seems you want to be a platform because you want the legal protections so you don't get sued by people, in which case it's strongly recommended that you remain a platform. So, as they say, Twitter has hidden the tweet by President Donald Trump from its profile, saying it violates rules about glorifying violence. It says that Twitter has determined that it may be in the public's interest for the tweet to remain accessible instead of being deleted. So, what he was saying here is that he would send in the National Guard and follow that up with a warning that when the looting starts, the shooting starts. That is to say that if the people who are looting, and it's not the citizens of Minneapolis in particular, because whenever this looting happens, it is people from neighboring states, from neighboring areas, that come in order to take advantage of the situation. And Walmart being looted and attacked and vandalized has nothing to do whatsoever with the police officer that murdered George Floyd. Nothing to do with that. So it's not as if they are therefore rebelling against the police, they are instead just opportunistic. And, of course, when they're now damaging low-income housing, it is not affecting the police, but instead it is affecting the people who live there. So if they're already feeling unsafe and uneasy, if they're concerned about police brutality, then coming in and showing that citizens can be worse than police, and now the police can't do anything to protect them because they're concerned about being called too brutal, then you're not helping their case whatsoever. You're making their lives miserable. You're making their lives substantially worse by looting in their homes. Stop it. You're not helping. And this isn't so much a black identitarian, oh, it's Black Lives Matter and we got to liberate the black people, because from the clips, the videos, the pictures, the images, the photos that you will see of this looting, it seems to be quite a diverse crowd, actually. That it doesn't come down to, oh, it's black people just wanting to go after the policemen who are responsible. But no, it's a diverse crowd looting whatever they can get their hands on, wherever they can get their hands on it, in order to just turn a quick buck and take advantage of the situation. You know, never let a good crisis go wasted, as the old dictum goes. It's exactly the same thing here. And yes, I'm well aware that the precinct, the third precinct, that was responsible for having that police officer has also been burned, vandalized, damaged, attacked, set alight. But that is just a small piece of the much wider jigsaw of what the response has been. And you must, of course, note that a response to a police officer killing a citizen does not warrant a response of destroying the whole town. That is not how it works. And in fact, seeing as this isn't a systemically racist system or country, there are laws put in place in order to prevent this thing from going unchecked. And, in fact, he has therefore been charged with murder. Police do not have carte blanche. They do actually have to follow rules, follow laws. And because the BBC love pointing out race, Derek Chauvin, who is white, was shown in footage kneeling on 46-year-old George Floyd's neck on Monday. He and 3 officers have been sacked. So the prosecutor, Hennepin County Prosecutor Mike Freeman, said Mr. Chauvin was charged with third-degree murder. He said he anticipates charges for the 3 other officers, but would not offer more details. Mr. Freeman said his office charged this case as quickly as evidence has been presented to us, and this is by far the fastest that we've ever charged a police officer, he noted. So yes, when it comes to killing a black man, they're actually very quick in prosecuting the police officer. Again, it does not seem something that is a symptom of a systemically racist country or legal proceedings. That you had someone who clearly, to quote, had a deprived mind without regard for human life. They were not set free because the victim was a black man, but instead, they're the fastest ever charged police officer. That they took him to court, they charged him, the fastest that they've ever done. So if the idea was that black people are worthless, obviously it wouldn't have happened this quick. Instead, he would have been moved around the country, tried to hide him from sight, just like the Catholic Church did with paedophiles, for example, in their priesthood, that they'd move them around under Ratzinger so that they wouldn't be traced in court and then found out for what they'd done. That you don't have that. Instead, they face the music very quickly. They are prosecuted, they are charged with murder. It is not a systemically racist country. It's as simple as that. But as we know that the National Guard troops have been activated, have been dispatched, they've decided to put curfews in place for Minneapolis and St. Paul from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. on Friday night and ending Sunday morning. Because on Thursday, during the 3rd night of protest over Floyd's death, a police station was set alight. A number of buildings have been burned, looted, and vandalized. And this is what prompted the activation of the state's National Guard troops. There have, of course, also been demonstrations in other US cities, including New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Denver, Atlanta, Louisville, Phoenix, Columbus, and Memphis. And they also mention Ahmaud Arbery, who was known for police before, and Breonna Taylor, who was the one where police had raided the wrong house. They were raiding a house for a man who was actually already in custody, as it happens. But they went there, they announced themselves as police, they tried to get in, and one of the police officers was shot, and therefore they did unload a few dozen rounds into the occupants of the house, into both the man and the woman, Breonna Taylor, of course there, killing her, because the police were returning fire. Of course, I am not a fan of such militarized vehicles used by SWAT teams, for example, suggesting that there's actually a police lockdown on the streets. But when police are getting shot at after they've announced themselves, you've got to imagine that there will be some sort of response. And it is the American way to have superior firepower. That is just the American mentality. That if they are going after someone who has broken the law, who is a criminal, who is a terrorist, for example, if it's in another country, the American way is to overwhelm them with an insane amount of firepower. That is what they do. If they announce themselves and say exactly what they're trying to do, and they're trying to detain cordially, you try shooting at them, they will obliterate you. That is the American way. That is why the so-called Wild West wasn't very wild at all. I think they had 9 bank robberies during the entire time, because people were armed, because they understood the consequences, because they understood that if they tried to do something stupid, they would get shot by many people. It's a version of mad, if you will, mutually assured destruction, but that is the American way. And, last but not least, CNN wanting the First Amendment. Yes, they want their freedom to associate. They don't want to be dispersed as a crowd. despite apparently COVID-19 being so infectious. So the CNN reporter has been released, thank goodness. We do need a free press. Yes, sure, they're biased, but let them speak out. Let them also be refuted by other people. Let there be more speech in order to understand what's going on. So it was wrong to arrest them, of course. So Omar Jimenez was led away in handcuffs while he was live on air early on Friday. His cameraman and producer were also detained, apparently because they did not move on when told. They were released without charge. Good. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has apologized, describing the incident as unacceptable. And bear in mind that, as I see here, that CNN tweeted, a CNN reporter and his production team were arrested this morning in Minneapolis for doing their jobs, despite identifying themselves a clear violation of their First Amendment rights. The authorities in Minnesota, including the governor, must release the 3 CNN employees immediately. So yes, they were actually wanting their First Amendment rights, even though they try and strip it away from everybody else. So the hypocrisy here is astounding. But Governor Walz, good on him, said he took full responsibility for the incident. To quote, "In a situation like this, even if you're clearing an area, we have got to ensure that there is a safe spot for journalism to tell the story. The issue here is trust," he said during a press conference. He added that there was absolutely no reason something like this should happen. And good on you. Sure, it might just be words, but actually taking responsibility for something, explaining what the problem is, and then what you're going to do about it. That is exactly what you want from an apology. It shows that you actually understand what's happening and you're putting things in place so that it won't happen again. It shows that you're not just trying to play things up and say, yeah, sorry, and just leave it at that. It's like they actually know what they did wrong, so you know that they're taking responsibility, and they're actually telling you why it won't happen again, which means you can rest assured that they actually mean it. That, so sorry means that it won't happen again. It's that old dictum, and that's what makes it meaningful. So, as I said, he took full responsibility. So it's his to take. Yes. Okay. And he's saying that the issue here is trust. So the issue is trust. That's the problem. And you've got to ensure that there was a safe spot for journalism to tell the story. That's what he's going to do to make sure it doesn't happen again. It's very straightforward. It's very wrapped up. But it's a good example for any aspect of life in how an apology should be formed. So that you know what you've done wrong. You sincerely mean it. Everybody knows you mean it. Everybody, including yourself, knows that you're not going to let it happen again because you're taking steps to prevent it. It makes you far more trustworthy, and people respect the fact that you can admit when you're wrong and you will actively do something to fix it instead of just placate the opposition of saying, yeah, sorry, my mistake, in order for them to get you to leave you alone. Instead, you're doing something about it. So, even if it's just words, it's a good example. So, well done, Walz. But now that we've got the National Guard coming in, let's hope that things will actually start to calm down. Now that Derek Chauvin has been charged with third-degree murder, let's hope that the riots will quiet down. It doesn't set a good precedent to say that if you riot, you'll get your way. But, in a situation like this, they don't really have a choice but to expedite the process and get it over with as soon as possible in order to have law and order restored. In order to understand that what the police officer did was obviously wrong, and therefore he must be charged and held accountable for his actions. Until it comes out later that there's more evidence than he's let off. But hey, until next time, as always, have a good one.